Alright, so let's talk Castlevania Season 2. Alright, so in my opinion, this was hands down one of the best series I have watched all year. Now, it's no secret, I'm a giant Castlevania fan, so I was kind of eagerly anticipating Season 2 of this, especially since, like, when the first season of Castlevania came out on Netflix, number one, everyone was already terrified that it was going to suck, because most video games that get translated to either TV or movie don't wind up going that well, but you could genuinely tell that this was made by a guy who had legit love for the series, and Castlevania is actually one of those games where on the surface it doesn't look like there's much to it, but it's actually very in-depth as far as the story goes and everything, even to the point of actually tying some of these characters to legitimate history. Like, for example, Dracula. Dracula's actual name is Vladimir Dracula Tepesh, who is actually based off a guy in history that was also known as Vlad the Impaler. Now, was he actually a vampire? No, probably not. But then again, none of us were around at that time, so what the fuck do we know, you know what I mean? But they really, you always got to put some liberty into a series in order to make the story flow. And this guy did such a good job of like, okay, here is our baseline, and we're gonna jut a little up here, we're going to dip a little down here, in order for all the story to mesh well together. And then on top of that, the director really got some kudos on my part by starting at the beginning of the story. He didn't start with the first game, he started at the beginning of the timeline. So for those of you that don't know, the order of game release for Castlevania was Castlevania 1, which was Simon Belmont, Castlevania 2, which was after the events of 1, and then Castlevania 3, which wound up over here with Trevor Belmont, who was the father of Simon Belmont, this guy right here. So they actually start the Castlevania series with Trevor Belmont. They start at the beginning of the timeline. Now, the series doesn't have very many episodes, especially Season 1. Season 1, I think, only had about, 6 episodes, I believe? I don't know, I'd have to go back and look. But, it was a very short amount of episodes, and Season 2 is kind of short as well. About 8 episodes, all 8 of them running at about 30 minutes long, so it's about 4 hours. But the amount of content that they get through, oh god, they did it just so well. And obviously I'm starting off with the stuff that I like about the series. One of the big things that I genuinely loved about the series and how he depicted Dracula, and this is something they kind of touched on the games to a point, but not completely. Dracula was married to a human woman. They had a child, Alucard, the son of Dracula, and the church and humanity burned Dracula's wife at the stake for being a witch. And this is what sent Dracula off the deep end, and how he was going to wipe out the world and all that type of stuff. And then Trevor Belmont, coming from the lineage of Belmonts, who are there to destroy darkness, and it is they were born to take out dark entities and people like Dracula and stuff like that. So like, this is what they were born to do. So Trevor Belmont winds up teaming up with Sypha, who's another character that you meet in Castlevania 3, and then they also run into Alucard. They actually run into Alucard at the end of Season 1, but now he's a lot more fleshed out in Season 2, having more time to really focus on his backstory and how things were for him, and his interactions with everyone is just, oh god, it's golden. It's absolutely golden. Just that prim, proper, but he's going to throw that barb at you every single chance he gets. But more often than not, you're going to wind up laughing at it, because it's really fucking funny. And you see that camaraderie / animosity towards Trevor Belmont and Alucard, because they are born of different worlds, but in many cases, they're actually one and the same. They're cut from the same cloth, yet born from different worlds. And I feel like that works really, 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 really well. But touching on again, where the person that made this series really, really loved the games, you can tell just how the episodes flow and certain things that they encounter in the show. I don't remember the name of the boss. I want to think it was like Slogra or something like that. But the giant bird with the spear and the giant demon-looking bat that breathed fire, they always fought as a pair in the games. Every time you ran into them, it was never just one. You had to fight them both. They actually fought them in the show, and it was actually really cool. And then certain audio cues and visual cues happened in the show that just made you go, hey, that was from the game, and that was absolutely awesome. Visual cues like Trevor Belmont finding the chain whip, the Morning Star, otherwise known as the vampire killer. And every time you would hit somebody with the whip in the games, they would explode into this little ball of flame. And the director clearly remembered that, because every time he would whack a vampire with the vampire killer, they'd fucking explode! So you get some fan service like that you go, hey, they remembered, and that's absolutely awesome. And then you would have Alucard, who would just go running headlong into people, and then he'd transform into a wolf so he could keep moving fast and everything. And then one scene, and God, it was one of the coolest looking scenes out of the entire season. You see him with his sword. He's got his sword up like this, but he's only holding it by the sheath. So, like, there's nothing holding the handle or anything like that, and you just see him pull the sheath off the sword while not holding it, and the sword is just kind of levitating there. And for any of you guys, like me, who played Castlevania Symphony of the Night, having the sword familiar, so you just had that floating sword kind of following you around and everything, it really kind of paid homage to that, and I thought that was so cool looking as well. And like true to form with Castlevania, eventually you gotta get to the castle. So by the end of Season 2, they get into the castle and they fight Dracula, and I heard a lot of people complaining to a point about, oh, well, I don't hear bloody tears. They never worked bloody tears or anything like that into the show, therefore it's crap. Shut the fuck up. Just shut up. You are nitpicking so damn hard at that point, because once they get to the castle, working their way up to Dracula, you actually hear this symphonic version of Bloody Tears start playing, and it's absolutely beautiful. The visuals look great during the fight. Everything just looks awesome. Everything sounds awesome. And I don't want to get into too much spoiler territory, but the showdown between Trevor Belmont, Sypha, and Alucard versus Dracula himself was just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And the character development throughout the season of why Dracula wants to destroy humanity, the real reason why he wants to destroy humanity, how the whole situation is affecting him, and how it's making him feel, how it's making Alucard feel to have to fight and kill his own father. It's just supremely, supremely well done. But for as much good as I feel the need to praise, there are a couple bad things about it as well. There are some characters that I feel like did not get the amount of screen time that they deserved. One of them being... shit, I can't even remember his name now. Isaac. I feel like Isaac should have gotten more screen time. He did get a good amount, but I feel like he could have benefited from more with how prevalent he wound up being. And then on top of that, War God Hand, something like that. I forget his name, but he's played by James, that German-Russian dude that's in virtually everything. He's played by him, And I thought he was awesome, and he leaves the show a little too soon, in my opinion. Now, scripting-wise, this is where my biggest gripe is. Now, this is set in, like, old European type of deal, like the Dark Ages, and I'm sure there was cursing back then. Like, I'm definitely not discrediting that, but I felt like there was a lot of F-bombs and shits and all this different type of stuff that were thrown around just for the sake of making it R-rated. And I'm just kind of sitting there going, I really don't think people were cursing that much back then. I mean, they could have, I don't know, I wasn't born, but it seemed like they were just, there was just expletives there to just have expletives there, because they couldn't think of something else to say. Now, granted, I'm a big advocate of cussing. I cuss like a sailor. I cuss like if I continue to do it, I'm gonna win something. But even I have to sit there and just kind of comment on the fact of, like, you could have just easily just said, what was that? Instead of just having a pause and going, what the fuck was that? Like, because they put so much emphasis on some of the swearing in some of the situations where it just didn't need to be there. And that was kind of a personal turnoff. For some of you guys, that may not matter all that much, but for me, it was just kind of like, you can deliver the point without cussing. Because, God, they say fuck a lot in this show, where I just didn't feel the need for it to be there. Season 2 looks just as gorgeous as Season 1 did. It's graphic, so if you have kids or you have younger siblings that, ooh, Castlevania, watch that, don't let them watch it, because, good God, they'll have nightmares. This show, this cartoon, this anime, pretty sure it's an anime, is definitely 100% geared towards adults. But my final thought on it is definitely go watch it. It's only 4 hours, but it's going to be some of the best 4 hours you've ever spent watching a show. Especially if you're a fan of the Castlevania series, whether you know a little bit about it or you know a decent amount about it like I do, go watch it. It is so worth it. And if you haven't seen any of it, start at Season 1. Season 1 is just as good. But that's all I got for right now, so thank you very much for watching. I appreciate the support, and as always, if you like what you saw, please hit that subscribe button and slam that thumbs up. It helps out the channel more than you think, and it lets me know what kind of content you like watching from me. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.